Way back.
Good morning and welcome back to Buffalo-Plaid Breakfast, where we've got another exciting show today where we have Jan and Elias joining us live from Las Vegas. Super early over there. They're out there going to the conferences, hitting the scene for DEFCON, Black Hat, and B-Side Las Vegas. So kind of just, diving into some of the more well-known conferences today. Jan, Elias, how are things going over there?
Excellent.
Relatively well, although as you said, it's early morning and we're still in the room. There's no coffee pot anywhere in this room, so I'm having this very clear coffee right now, which is not having much of an effect on me. It's definitely lacking some chemicals.
Well, it is Las Vegas water, so you do not know for sure what is in it. So
this is true.
If it came from Lake Mead, there might be some of those barrel bodies and things.
I mean, it could really contain a jolt if you get the right ingredients over there. Well, guys, let's just kind of start diving into the history of the conferences that are going on over there. These are some of the big ones. DEFCON and Black Hat are two of the biggest events of the year. So let's just start with DEFCON. Held annually in Vegas, hacker convention. Let's talk about it.
Yeah, it's an event that literally started as a going away party by the founder. The guy goes by the handle of Dark Tangent. His name is Jeff Moss, and he started this thing in 1993. One of his best friends was moving out of the area. His parents were leaving, and they were hackers together in a small hacker community. He was going to throw this party. Well, his parents left before the party was to happen. So he's got this party all planned and nobody coming. So he invited his hacker friends and 100 of them showed up to that first event. They had so much fun. They said, we got to keep doing this. So it became an annual event.
And it's an interesting gathering by the sounds of it. Personally, never been, but love hearing the stories about it. So, let's just kind of start, 93 to now, what's happened, what's different. Obviously more than 100 people are showing, but what goes on at these things?
Yeah, we're up to about 30,000 now, I think.
Yeah, somewhere around there, which is actually more than DEFCON.
And Black Hat, right?
I'm sorry, more than Black Hat, because Black Hat actually has several events now around the world. When they were both just a single conference within the same location, and then the numbers were relatively equal. So you were asking, some of the what goes on, some of the history behind it. The name itself comes from Defense Condition from the movie War Games from 1983, and also it comes from the number 3 on the telephone keypad, which has the letters DEF, and that was from the hacker type known as a phreaker. Those were the people that discovered that hey, you could whistle into telephones or send certain DTMF sounds, dual tone multi-frequency, and you could bypass the phone system's restrictions on long distance calling. And you could have all kinds of fun with the phone system at their expense. So they were phreakers.
Yeah, I remember Kevin Mitnick was big into that as well.
Yeah,
that was very, very big. That's kind of the beginning of hacking almost, to an extent, when it became kind of started getting popular and interesting to a lot of people.
When it started taking off. Well, I know, it's built around hackers, it's for hackers, and obviously, that's the whole thing, right? What can we hack today? What can we hack tomorrow? And kind of, take care of some of that ethical hacking, which we'll kind of talk about a little bit more about later on in the show. But, let's kind of touch on what happens, what to expect. Let's just say Joe off the street shows up. What's going to happen to Joe?
Joe's going to experience some serious culture shock if he's not ready for this, and he's used to typical corporate events.
That's for sure.
We got off the elevator last night coming up into our room, and there's a guy wearing a DEFCON badge. We'll show you in a little bit. He's wearing a tartan skirt He's got boots on,
like a 2-foot mohawk.
2-foot red mohawk, a red beard down to here.
Yeah.
And he's one of the conference attendees.
And this isn't just people that are putting on a show for the, event. Some of you have that as well, but
Yeah.
a lot of these people that they have to look like this 24/7 because their beards are long, their hair is like pretty wild. They have tattoos all over the place. It's pretty cool.
And then
Pretty
you're
well.
on, complete other end of the spectrum. You got me. I show up as dad the businessman, and you've got plenty of people that look like that, and you got the Oriental hackers that they're down over in the capture the flag, and they come up for air only to sip on their energy drinks, and they literally look like any other Oriental that you would see on the street.
Yep.
So these are people that just come out of the woodworks, right? From anywhere behind the scenes, in front of the scenes, it doesn't matter, all for that common good. So, it's really, sounds fun. Obviously that's what it's built around, for enjoyment at a party, but it also accomplishes a lot. A lot of the things that come out of it, are here to help us. It's not just for fun and games. It's not just for, show and all of that. It's one of those events that is designed to be focused around an outcome, whereas a lot of the others are just to show up and share knowledge. This one actually produces outcome. So let's talk a little bit of, what those outcomes are. What are these guys doing, not just at the conference floor, but as you guys mentioned, in their hotel rooms afterwards, gathering in centralized places. What are all of they doing during that time?
They run the gamut, honestly. And there'll be big LAN parties where people are gaming or just, collectively hacking something and trying to figure out how to bypass something. There will be, giant, what do they call it? The where they go around and oh man, I forgot what's it called? Where they go around and try and the scavenger hunt. Yeah, they have these scavenger hunts that they do every year as well, where they're just like roaming around the city looking for all these different, items to fulfill their.
And they're usually technical, something relating to DEFCON or the tech field in general.
Yeah.
But going to the practical side of what's going on in the DEFCON, I think that's kind of where you were going with that. Mm-hmm. Is that there are multiple tracks that are taking place simultaneously. There's no way you can see it all.
No.
We'll post a picture on the Buffalo-Plaid site of the show board showing how many different events there are going on simultaneously. One thing that we're really looking forward to this afternoon, for instance, is Dark Tangent, Jeff Moss, is going to be having an Ask Me Anything with Jen Easterly, the CISA director, at 2:00 this afternoon. So that's, really cool event. The XZ vulnerability that took kind of our industry by storm, that the Microsoft programmer found by accident. They're going to be doing a deep dive into that and breaking down exactly how that happened, what occurred, what the forensics behind it was. There's one this morning at 10:00 that is going to be talking about a person who infiltrated the Residia ransomware gang and sat in that thing for an extended period of time, learning everything about them, how they operate, what they do, what their techniques, methodologies were. And then you go down to simple things like, okay, somebody's going to be demonstrating how they broke into this specific radio type that is used to communicate with a specific service, such as emergency services. And the result of that is that this person who's disclosed it has now made it safer for everybody else so that the bad people can't get into those things.
Yeah. And I think all of those things, you talk about are what we need to do within the industry, that knowledge sharing of true practical events, but then also you get that community mind effect, where it's that hive mind with people in there going, oh, you clicked that button, and if I click this button and combine it with that button, we're going to get this, and what it really does is, it's that acceleration of those events by getting together and having those like-minded people, just their inspiration, those inspirational juices flowing, going, even for you guys that are not necessarily on the hacking side of things but are on that blue side, we're getting to see that side of things. So as we dive into that conversation on ethical hacking, let's just go ahead and touch on it. Why is it ethical hacking? I mean, what does that mean? for starters, everyone knows what a hacker is and what makes it ethical.
Actually, let me define hacker. The term hacker has really gotten bad press, but a hacker is someone who has a thing doing something and wants it to do something different
than its intended
than it was original or intended use. It is an amoral term, but we have made it an immoral term simply because of all the prevalence of news about the bad hacking. But hacking in and of itself is just a term of somebody who wants to do something differently than it was originally intended.
Right. And then so let's go ahead and touch on that ethical side of it. What makes it now ethical?
Yeah, so I mean, the point of ethical hacking is to find those vulnerabilities before the bad guys do, right? So you want to disclose that information in a mature manner, give the vulnerable organization time to actually mitigate the vulnerability before you disclose it to the public. And that's how most people typically do this. How most bug bounty hackers and
vulnerability testers,
ethical hackers and pen testers and red teamers, that's how they're going to approach this, software developers. So but there's also really kind of this stigma because of the hacking, and there's countries out there that have policies where they're just like, hey, if you do this and even if you disclose it to us first and tell us about it, we're going to prosecute you.
Germany's like that right now. It's very restrictive.
Yeah, there's some really well-known cases. There was a case I heard about in Alberta, Canada, where they were essentially, reporting something that was bad, and the guy got sued. They tried to throw him in jail, and he was just like, "Look, you guys are about to get hacked because of this," and he didn't tell anybody else. Then they got hacked, and then then they're like, "Oh, how can you work with us to help mitigate the issue?" That kind of thing. And that's a pretty common thing. But if so, really, I would say if corporations take anything from what we're saying during this call, listen to the people out there that are trying to help you. Listen. It may be scary and it may suck that they told you something that you didn't want to hear, but it's better than being compromised and dealing with that aftermath. Take it from us. We deal with that on a regular basis, and it's very much a bad thing.
And have a legitimate channel where that communication can come to you. They're not trying to send help desk at mybigcompany.com.
Bug tracker
a specific place where somebody's going to go, oh wait, we got somebody who's telling us there's a problem. Is this real or not? And DEFCON and Black Hat to some degree has really been the incubator for that type of ethical hacking and responsible reporting. In the early days of both of those events, it wasn't uncommon to have authorities arrest the speakers immediately after their conversations because corporations were suing them for the fact that they disclosed things that they considered to be proprietary and private. Well, by having that disclosed that was proprietary and private, it makes the world safer for all of us, because now the things that we have in our environments that are using that can be properly patched and secured.
Yeah, their approach truly is doing the right thing, for the greater good. They're trying to make sure that, all of our information isn't stolen and not just worried about the corporation, but worried about all the corporation's clients and constituents and what have you that are being impacted by a breach, and trying to stop that from happening. And actually I remember that one in Alberta. It was a gentleman that was, I think it might've been related to the school district or something, but he was like, hey, my kids go to school here. I found out about it, and I was just kind of tinkering around, and I saw this bad thing on your website, and I wanted to make sure that it didn't impact not only my kids, but like our friends and our family. And, so that's a very common approach.
Yeah. And it's tough, on that side of things, because you can do these things like you mentioned, like bug bounties, where you're actually actively working with the, organization to find it. But most of these are just found by happen chance. You're browsing the internet, you're using the application, and all of a sudden you notice something that doesn't quite add up. And then next thing you know, you're going down that rabbit hole. These people are tinkerers. They're not people that just accept everything to run the way it should. And then, there are tools and processes that they throw at it once they kind of get an inkling for it. So I love the idea of businesses needing to be more open-minded to receiving the news in an appropriate manner. front page headline of Wall Street Journal, probably not an appropriate manner. But, you know, a back end email letting them know of something going on and being willing to work with them is that appropriate manner. I do want to take a quick slip over to Red Hat, you know, and just kind of touch on that, you know, Black Hat. Sorry.
The other color.
The other color.
Black and red. We think in black and red all the time, don't we?
But, you know, slip over to Black Hat and kind of just start talking a little bit about its history and, you know, kind of some of the things that go on around Black Hat and the differences between it and DEFCON.
So the funny thing about Black Hat is it was founded by the same guy, Jeff Moss, at Dark Tangent. And in 1997, a few years after DEFCON was started, he realized that this DEFCON was a great place for hackers to gather and be part of a community and really share knowledge. But corporations were still going, oh, dear God, keep these people away from me. And he designed Black Hat to be a place where corporations would be comfortable interacting and getting to know who were these people brilliant people behind the scenes that can help propel their corporations to a much more secure and frankly, a better computing posture, because some of these things are not just vulnerabilities. They're how do you do something better?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a great point, you know, on that side. And I'm sure the standoffish was the other way as well. You know, a lot of hackers don't want to deal with corporations. So having that intermediary kind of organizational event that you can go to is an amazing idea, you know. And now, you know, Black Hat obviously is the more corporate driven side of things, you know, where it's the more talking about the, you know, ways that they've overcome, you know, the hacking and tools that you can use to leverage on that side of things. You know, so let's kind of talk about some of that side of things and understand, you know, Black Hat's not just a singular event like we talked about earlier. You know, it goes all over the world now. You know, what do they do during those events? You know, would you expect if I were to show up to Black Hat today? You know, obviously a total different experience than we talked about earlier. But, you know, Joe off the street now goes to Black Hat. What is he going to see?
A lot more buttoned up. A lot more. I mean, if you've been to any corporate event, think of most corporate events on steroids. But I guess Black Hat's kind of like that. I mean, they have this great initial talk with usually pretty big headliners like the top security execs at Google. I know have been at some of these or Facebook or what have you.
This year they got the corporate VP of Microsoft, the director of threat intelligence for strategic consulting at Microsoft. They have Jen Easterly there from CISA. She's also going to be a Black Hat. They got the co-founder of ThreatLocker. I mean, other huge major names in major corporations.
Yeah, and it's a pretty large venue. Not as large as DEFCON right now, but it's still a very large venue. They have that giant concert hall area in Mandalay Bay, I think it is.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's you go there. I mean, it's a lot more. The other interesting part about it is it's a lot more vendor driven and swag driven. If you remember that term, there's a lot of swag out there, and it can be quite overwhelming. The vendor showcase, the floor, you know, walking the floor, there's a lot of stuff going on, and it is interesting because you go there every year. When you go there, and you've been there, you know, you notice the trend of security companies just coming out of the woodwork, new security companies showing up, and that vendor showcase just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. But you also see the security companies that are going away as well because and that's just the nature of security. So you can kind of extrapolate from that the nature of security. It's very fluid, very dynamic. You have to adapt with security and change constantly in order to stay with the latest trends.
Now, a place like Black Hat, as Elias was talking about, is very vendor driven. That vendor showcase is a phenomenal place to find pretty much anybody and everybody that's in this space that you are looking for in one spot. And unlike Black Hat, which is corporate sponsored with paid employees everywhere, DEFCON is all volunteer. And only within the last couple of years have they opened up a couple of corporate sponsor things, and it's a very small space within DEFCON for the corporate sponsors, which help offset some of the costs.
Yeah. And I think, you know, the easy way to just compare them is Black Hat's corporate, you know, whereas DEFCON's hobbyist. You know, it's not one-to-one, but you know, it's those enthusiasts, it's the people that are excited about it, you know, that are doing it, ultimately driving for the same goal, but one is driven by money, the other is driven by just either an entertainment side of it, or, you know, it can be their business, but it's more of, you know, a personal passion, you know, side of things. So
they also do have a little bit of overlap. I was just remembering. So they have this thing called Arsenal at Black Hat. And at Arsenal, you have typically open source tools for attacking and discovery and what have you. So you get an idea of what's out there, and it's usually the people that have created those tools coming out and doing demonstrations of how their tools work and what sort of information you can glean by using their tools, what sort of things you could compromise by using their tools, and what that process might look like. And that's pretty fascinating as well. And of course, you have a lot of that at DEF CON, but
well,
they've kind of bridged the gap a little bit by bringing that into Black Hat as well.
And I think the way to summarize that is Black Hat offers training, where DEF CON offers hands-on items where you're doing it, you know, by yourself.
Yeah, and one of the things that DEF CON offers is workshops where they open up at like noon Pacific time on a Saturday, and literally within 30 seconds the workshops are sold out. And there's no charge for them, but they use Eventbrite to, you know, limit their registrations. And unless you have your finger on the button of what you're trying to register for, it's gone.
It's gone. Yeah. Wow. Yeah, it's, you know, it's two different worlds, you know, and I love that they run at the same time, and that there is that crossover now as you go between the two, because of the fact that one is, like I said, made for those people that are passionate about the industry, that are driving it. And not to say that the industrial corporate side is not passionate about it. It's just a different side of things, and gives the, you know, smaller market driven people that are out there doing it, you know, a chance to get their names out there and talk about it, and the content. Let's talk about some of you guys' experience there at DEF CON. You know, we mentioned the badge, you know, let's talk about that.
So this is this year's DEF CON badge. Every year they come up with something interesting, and every 2 years they do an electronic badge, because the cost is just really high, and, you know, they got to be able to recoup costs. And what's neat about the badges is that they're designed to promote curiosity and foster a community spirit. This thing has connectors all over it. It's got an infrared connector. It's got a micro SD card slot. It's got a USB-C. It's got a little screen on this thing that actually has the map to DEF CON. It's got a little plug on top here. It's got a pogo plug inside. I mean, just, it's designed to really get you thinking and collaborating.
Then it's also built off of this Raspberry Pi board that just came out that essentially looks like it was a collaborative effort almost.
Yeah, it's a Raspberry Pi that was introduced for the first time to the world at DEF CON, and it's now going to be made available to the rest of the world.
Mm-hmm. And they encourage you to use it to create things, hack, you know, create games that you're, you know, showing, or some process or some visual, you know, interesting, just gizmo, you know, right? Turn it into something interesting, make it different, put your own personality into it. And we see that a lot. That's like when we're walking around, people come with the hard hats that they have this hard hat contest where everyone has a hard hat, but they put all kinds of bells and whistles into it, LEDs and sound and like antenna,
wireless
and
access points where they're sucking down every signal going on around them so they can hack people's phones. You turn your radios off other than your cell signal when you're on the show floor. Otherwise, you will be hacked, and your name will show up on the wall of sheep. This massive board of people that are shown, hey, we've hacked this person. Here's their username, and here's their redacted password.
Yeah, that's pretty wild.
Yeah, and you talk about a great way to show where you're at, you know, on that side of things. You know, we all use badges when we go to the conferences, but I love how much that one stands out and gives you the opportunity to, you know, display what you're doing, and the opportunity to personalize it. You know, that's amazing.
The other thing that's going on here in Las Vegas at the same time is B-Sides LV. You briefly mentioned that. So that's another conference series called B-Sides, which started out as hey, there's great talks that couldn't make it into Black Hat or DEF CON. what do we do with these? These people have phenomenal material. They're up and coming. They're not one of the big name headliners that, that are going to get drawn to the stage. So B-Sides is kind of born out of that idea. Let's give them a forum and a place to go. And B-Sides has continued to grow, but not specifically Vegas, but it's spread out to cities all over the world. And B-Sides is usually in Las Vegas has been free. This year they had to charge $100 for the badge because they just didn't have enough room. And once the badges are sold out, then you're out of luck unless you can steal one from somebody. I'm going to a B-Sides in my home town, St. Pete, and that cost me $25 to register for. It's a one-day event. I was one in Tampa about 2 months ago. It was $35 to register, and the content there, I would say, was probably on par with what I'm seeing at DEFCON this year. It is really phenomenal content by volunteer community that is putting on these events. Mm-hmm. Mark Simos, one of the Microsoft guys that presented, I was blown away by this guy. He's the director of their security services for incident response. It's just...
And you mentioned those, and they're all over the place. I mean, if you live near a major metropolis area, I'm sure you can find them. I mean, they have them in San Antonio, they have in Austin around here, and they're consistently going. So great opportunity again to get out there in the community. And, that's a perfect segue into our community-driven events. The Integris Inspire events that go on for us that give you the opportunity to give out, and get involved in the community are constantly ongoing. So a great chance for you guys to get to those. I kind of want to dive a little bit more into kind of, you mentioned some of the conferences or the sessions that you guys are going for. I just want to know, personally, which one are you guys looking forward to the most?
The one I'm personally looking forward to the most is the one with Jeff Moss, Dark Tangent, and Jen Easterly, because it's an Ask Me Anything type format. So it can be a real free-for-all. I'd say one of Elias's that he's looking forward to is Hacker Jeopardy.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, Hacker Jeopardy is excellent. There's also this the Cult of the Dead Cow hacker group, which is they're super interesting, and I love hearing war stories from the old hackers. And just how they came up and started, because I was doing this kind of stuff when I was really young as well, and came up alongside these guys, and it's just super interesting hearing about those sorts of experiences. From soup to nuts, like you're at the very beginning of the beginning of all this stuff, and hearing the chronology of everything the events, everything that transpired, and they're like, oh yeah, we're talking to the FBI director about this thing that we found, and it's super cool.
Oh yeah, we didn't even mention villages. So DEFCON has official talks, they have workshops, and then they have hacker villages where you have people like ICS, lock picking.
Aerospace.
Last year, SpaceX and NASA launched a satellite into orbit that was live hacked at DEFCON for the purpose of being live hacked at DEFCON so they can improve space security. That was the aerospace village that was involved in doing that, and it was a contest to see who could get into what. But those are some of the really cool things that you get to see and experience. And there's just so much. The voting village,
voter machine hacking, car hacking, medical device hacking, and so they're essentially bringing insight into these things and bringing awareness to the public and sharing this. The security community is very much a community focused community. Yeah, but they're very tight knit, and they're trying to promote awareness to the issues that are out there and help.
And LineCon, when you're standing in line with people waiting to get into something, you get to know people, and sometimes you exchange contact information, and you stay in touch with these people throughout the years, and you become friends, and you bounce ideas off of them. Two of the guys that we came with, they stood in line yesterday for 8 hours.
Yep. Well, and you bounce ideas and beach balls. There's a big thing at so you have a lot of people bring beach balls, and when they're in lines or they're in big crowds, they're just bouncing the beach balls the whole time.
Well, guys, don't have too much fun, but I always love how much the community comes together, especially events like this. And that's why we try to promote these things to make sure everyone knows, that it is a community out there and we're all driving towards the same goals and everything. Always remember, with us, like, share, follow, click the bell so when we go live, you get notifications, all of those things. If you're at the events, look for Elias, Jan. Anybody out there on our team is going to be there. Like you guys mentioned, you have 2 others on the team that are out there. Any last words?
I would say, it's fun being here at Hacker Summer Camp, but definitely keep the shields up because everybody here is out to get you. For sure.
I'll second that. Yeah, it's an excellent time out here, but it definitely does. We come back and we're more aware of things that we need to improve within our own networks and our customers' networks every time. Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. Enjoy yourselves.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, Jeremy.